Welcome to the Empowered Endings podcast, where you will learn how to navigate the complexities of palliative and end-of-life care in new ways. Your hosts, Dr. Bob and Elizabeth Uslander, have decades of experience raising the bar in palliative care and family support. Join us as we explore the wonders and realities of palliative care, share powerful stories, introduce you to amazing people that we've cared for, and empower you to navigate life's final stages with more grace, dignity, and ease. Together, let's discover empowered end-of-life experiences.
Hi, and welcome back to the Empowered Endings podcast. I'm Dr. Bob Uslander, and I'm here today with a special guest who is going to share some really incredible and it's a heartwarming and heartbreaking story in one. And Patricia Ponce-Filiu is a woman who I met not quite 2 years ago. She was referred. She and her husband Jaime were referred to us for support, and we had a very brief but very intense and I think very meaningful engagement. And Patricia, thank you so much for being here with us, and I really, really appreciate you being willing to come on and talk about your story and Jaime's story and what your family experienced. And there's so much value in what you have to share. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here.
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm just going to I'm going to open it up and let you talk a little bit about the experience that you and your family went through. And then we're going to touch on some points that are really important to be sharing about the medical aid and dying process and access to it, awareness of it. So please just share from what happened and what your experience was.
Sure. My husband and I were married 40 years before he passed. In August of 21, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. In July of that same year, a very good friend of the family had passed from stomach cancer. So digestive cancers seem to be quite brutal, and we had just gone through that experience when my husband was diagnosed. So I felt that going through my best friend's death, I had a lot of very current information. I knew what kind of tests needed to be done to be able to manage this new diagnosis and life-changing disease that was now part of our family. We have two daughters together, and he has had a daughter from his first marriage. And so I moved quickly. I was very persistent. I was talking to physicians. I was talking to oncologists, and was very involved with all aspects of his care. I asked questions about options and the different types of treatment. And so I consider myself somebody who does research and will listen and take notes. And so as his care progressed, he did chemo and radiation. The tumor was removed, and we thought we were in the clear. And 15 months later, he collapsed coming back from vacation from Puerto Rico. He had visited his family, so he collapsed at the airport while he was making his connection. And they found that he had a brain tumor. And so I went to get him at the hospital, and we flew back here, and they did a PET scan, and he had no other signs of other metastasis. So that tumor was removed in May of 2023, May 5th. And so the post-op care was radiation, and the chemo does not penetrate that part of the body, so there was no chemo that he would have, but the radiation was an option, and so we did that. Um, but he in early August he was having pain in his back, and he was a runner, so he had started running again. And so my first thought was that he was overdoing it because he was so excited that he was running again. But he said it was a different kind of pain, more like a nerve pain. And so it was time for him to do the follow up after his surgery. And we found that he had, in fact, metastasis in the membrane around his brain, and also the spine. So that was horrific news. And, we were told it could be weeks,
Mm.
maybe months. So we knew that we were in a situation where decisions would have to be made. And so seeing the variety of physicians and nurses and everybody that we saw, no one ever mentioned that California was an end of life state. That was never something that was shared with me. It wasn't anything that I knew to research. And so Jaime became very sick very quick. And we went at the end of September. He had to go on hospice. There was absolutely nothing else that could be done. And we never discussed what hospice really did, he and I. And he did say to me, "When do they give me the drug so that I can go to sleep?" And I
So
thought, oh my,
I want to
yeah,
like kind of you've had this he's been on this journey, this path
right,
where
right,
he was diagnosed with this horrific
yes,
condition. It's called leptomeningeal carcinomatosis when the cancer spreads to the brain and the membranes and
yes,
the membranes that go down through the spinal cord, and it's historically extremely painful,
yes.
very difficult to manage. There's no way to to effectively treat it.
Hmm.
And this had you and Jaime had conversations prior, like as things were all unfolding, about how he would want his end of life to unfold, or whether he would be want to do anything to hasten his death if it came to that point, or just
We had not.
you had not had those
We had not
conversations.
had those conversations. That was
Okay.
not something that anyone um, mentioned
No one
or
broached that topic
recommended,
with you.
or, it's like to compare it to something completely different as you get older and you're going to retire. And then, at work and friends will tell you, yo, you have to see, an attorney, you have to get a trust, you have to have a will, you have to have, a retirement plan, you have to plan for that. There is nothing in the way that we treat terminal illness. There isn't that box where you can say, okay, we've done this, but now we have to check the box where we have to
Mm,
talk about end of life. That's missing
yeah, for
from
sure.
something that is um life changing. So, sort of like retirement and having children. And, when you have kids, it's like, oh, you have to start a college fund, and you
Yeah,
have to, there are all these things that come
that you plan
with,
for,
yes, and
that
they
you that
they
you're
they happen. And in our society, it's like very normal for some life changing event to happen, to trigger these three things, two or four or five, for you to prepare for this life changing event that has just happened to you or will be
see,
happening to you.
Did he see a palliative care team? Was he being followed by palliative care, or did he just go from from the oncologist care right
And
into hospice care?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a
That's
gap. That's a
yes.
big,
And
that's a,
it just moved so fast.
yeah. Okay.
We went from May, thumbs up, radiation, and June. He had a scan at the end of July because he at this point the follow up is 30 every 30 days for the first 3 months, and then they would space them out. And so the first scan was clean, and then the second scan wasn't, and then the oncologist said it could be weeks or
Mhm.
months. Now this is the end of September, and he passed 13 October.
Right.
So it moved very fast.
It moved very, very fast. Yeah, I recall that. And so he got started with hospice care,
Yes.
and you said that you did at that point have a conversation. He asked you when they're
When
going to give him
the
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 pill
drugs.
or the
Yeah.
drugs.
When
And
do I
in his
get the
mind,
yes, that's what
in his
he envisioned hospice to be.
yeah, okay. And how, and was that discussed? Did he ask any that of the hospice team?
No, he did
Okay.
not. He asked me. I didn't. So I immediately thought, "Oh wow, this is bad," because I knew that I from all the hospice, and not that I have tons of experience, but from the friends that I have had that have had hospice or have, at the end, there's never that option, right? Nobody says, "Oh, so and so opted to do this." And even when Jaime was put on the pump, on the morphine pump, I asked the nurse if I continue, or if he continues to press the button to release the drug, can he die? Like, well, and she said to me, no, there is a you can keep pressing the button, but the mechanism will not allow you to disperse
Yeah,
a
there's a limit.
fatal, yeah, a fatal dose to your patient.
Right.
So,
And historically, there are, you hear stories of people, doctors and nurses in the hospital who have been compassionately generous with providing, pain medication and medications to allow people to be at peace with an understanding that it's possible that the person would stop breathing and die as a result of the increases in the medication. And
mhm,
that's something that's typically, it's not done with the intention of ending a life, but it's known to be a secondary, it's a potential secondary effect.
mhm,
And usually the family is made aware and on you know given consent to that. I also know that there are people who are on hospice, and there are hospice staff who are more, I'd say, aggressive in how they manage and medicate people, with the same understanding that
mhm,
at a certain point, the
mhm,
amount of medication somebody's receiving may stop their breathing and end their
mhm,
life. But there's a wide range of comfort between different
mhm,
hospice organizations, different
mhm.
hospice staff. So you never quite know what what you're going to get and what kind of support you're going to get. Some are very more aggressive, and some are very uh, cautious, worrying about liability or issues that might arise. So um, the End of Life Option Act removes that variability, that inconsistency, and it gives people the control
Right.
to make a determination. But no one told you about that. No one
No.
told you about that. And so tell us a little bit, what was the course on hospice like? What was happening to him? What was your family going through prior to being made aware of the option to pursue
So
medical aid and dying?
Jaime was, like you said, that type of cancer in the spine, and the membranes is incredibly painful. And so immediately, Jaime was given um, a starting point for the meds to see how he would tolerate. And it just, it kept the dosage was increased and increased, and to the point where um the the medicine was not managing the pain, and he would be out, like just kind of the medicine would mm, get into his system, and he would kind of like nod out. And so we as his family are watching this, and it's like he's drugged, but then he's not there, right? He's just, it's just the hours are going by and he's just getting worse. And so that was very difficult to watch, and not eating, and having the hospice, not only the social worker but the nurse explain that his body was going into a different process, and that the eating would not be something that he'd want to do, and
Hmm.
that that was okay. And that was very, very difficult for us
He
not
loved, yeah,
to.
he loved food. He
He
loved
did.
life.
He did.
He was bigger than life, and
He truly, truly was somebody who was very kind and very proactive, very funny, l- you know, loved his
loved his girls.
clothes, and yes, and his daughters and me. I mean, it was just he was just a really a person that loved to live, wanted to live. I mean, when
Yeah,
he was first diagnosed, he didn't even say, "How much time do I have?" He said, "What do we do to take care of this? Like,
yeah,
whatever I have to do to continue
yeah.
living, that's what I want to do." He was very, very proactive. He wasn't, he didn't say, "I'm gonna try the second opinion," or I'm focused. We're going with this plan. I don't have time to waste. And so
Hmm.
we went forth. So
And now,
that
so here's
was,
this man. Here's this
yes,
man who is a lover of life,
yes,
and now he's bedridden, and
yes,
he's in horrific pain, and he
yes,
can't eat, and he's on huge doses
yes,
of pain medication,
yes,
and it's
dying an
just
inch at a
getting
time.
worse, an inch at a time.
Hmm.
And which was terrible, horrible for you and your daughters to
Yes.
witness. And then what happened?
So, as things started to progress, I started to call friends and family and said, this is moving very fast. Haim is now in hospice. I had friends that were in shock because they had been with us the week before, celebrating Memorial Day, Labor Day, which one is the one in
Labor Day in the
August?
fall. Yeah.
Labor Day.
Yeah.
The end of August. And so, yeah, so it was, people were couldn't believe it. And so we had a friend who lives in Palm Springs in a senior community. And when he came to see Jaime, and he saw Jaime in the condition that he was in, and knowing Jaime for many, many years, asked me if why Jaime had not considered end of life. And I looked at him and I was not nice. I said to him, "Oh, like we have time to go to Seattle, Washington and get, because in my mind, I'd done zero research, just had heard that, that was a state where you would go and you had to become a resident. And there were all these things. Obviously, all my information is outdated." And he looked at me and he said, "No, you can do that in California. We have a guy, a friend in our community who was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he planned a party and said goodbye to all his friends, and then he, opted for end of life." And I could not believe what he was saying to me, and so I said, "I'll be right back." I went inside and I called the hospice nurse and I asked about end of life. And the nurse said, yes, that he knew about it, and that I would have to talk to the social worker that
Hmm.
was assigned to our case. and that they would give me more information. And so I did. And and she was great. And she said, yes, we would support. And then it was a matter of finding out how to do it and how quick. I quickly found out that his oncologist or radiologist or any of the doctors he had seen had ever done it, and nor could they do it. And so his oncologist is the one that recommended you, Dr. Bob. And I called the office. This happened on Sunday, and I was on the phone with your office on Sunday, trying to get all the particulars, trying to find out what we needed to do. And then you came over the house on Wednesday and met Jaime to make sure that he met all the requirements that are part of the state regulation for end of life. And he did. And there's something very key because you asked him, do you know what this says? Do you know what this process means? And he looked at you and he said, yes. What you need to understand is I'm already dead. It's just a matter of when.
Mm.
And we were devastated by the answer, but it was just so true and so the crux of this. And then when all that seriousness ended, he looked at you and said, "Hey, I like your shirt." Do you remember that? It
I do
was so,
remember that. I still
and
remember the shirt that I was
yes, and
wearing.
we all of us looked at you and I mean, we hadn't even registered what you were wearing, and we said, "Oh my gosh, this is like exactly his style."
Yeah, it's a Jaime
And
shirt.
yeah, and then once that happened, he was at so he was much more comfortable, like knowing that there was a path and that he wasn't going to end in the same manner as our friend passed, which was horrific to watch.
Yeah,
Going a little at a time. And because for us, every time we think of her, you can't erase that. Those final days, they're always part of when we think of her or where we say, oh, so and so, it's her birthday, or we're doing this, that those images continue to
of
be
your friend.
part. Yes,
This is of your
that,
friend who died
yes,
of stomach
yes,
cancer. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And
And as a and in contrast to that, when Jaime completed the process, got the
yes,
medication,
yes,
he was fully aware. He was awake. He was
yes,
sharing his love
yes,
and gratitude,
yes,
and the final words out of his. Do you recall his
yes,
final words?
I feel loved.
Hmm.
That's what he
And for
said.
those to be the last words that you get to hear from your
Yes,
beloved,
yes.
what an
That was
amazing gift.
so you came Wednesday and then you talked to him again on Friday because that's legally what has to be done.
Hmm.
And it was scheduled for Saturday morning. And so on Friday we went and we asked him, did he want music? Did he want flowers? What did he want? And he said flowers were fine. He didn't want to have music. We were all there. It was um, his three daughters, myself, and the social worker who was wonderful from hospice, you, and the nurse. And so on Friday night, we went and bought flowers. We decorated the room, made him as comfortable as possible. Even the dog was hanging around. And then Saturday morning, everybody showed up and we started talking. Everybody that was there, we were sharing stories and laughing. People were sharing where they had lived and this and the other. And at one point, my youngest daughter said, I think we need to get going because, I mean, you give me an hour and I'll take an hour chit-chatting. I will, bring subjects into and share and, get people who are talking with me to share their stuff as well. And we were told by you and also by the social worker that it could be as long as 6 hours and as short as an hour. And it was about an hour and a half. And it was really, I've said this to friends, and some have said, don't say beautiful. That doesn't sound beautiful. But that's what it was. It was a very beautiful um, way to say goodbye.
Mhm.
It was really,
Yeah.
really beautiful. And then once he fell asleep and we knew he was gone, then, we bawled. But until
Yeesh.
then, it was just such a beautiful experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember this, just the amount of love that was
Yes.
in that room was
uh,
powerful,
Yes.
incredible. And
Yes.
and there was no question that this was a man who was
Yes.
in the center of everyone's universe, and he was he did not want to leave that. He
No.
would never have made the choice to leave that if he had
No.
any other option available
No.
to him. So that was
No.
very clear. And he knew that it was a gift that you gave him to allow him this option.
Yeah,
And so thank you for sharing that. I know it's hard. I know that
it is. And
you're
and
you're
yeah,
you're very
I
brave.
think right after it happened, I think I was a little bit intense. Anybody who would talk to me um, about Jaime and how I was doing, I would say, "And did you know the end of life? And did you?"
You became a
Um,
very strong advocate,
yes,
and you still are, and that's why we're
yes,
here chatting.
yes,
and
yes,
and I'd like to. So I have a couple of other questions. If you had known about the option sooner, if Jaime
yes,
had known about this option sooner,
yes.
how do you think it might have changed things?
Well,
In what
I
way?
think yes. I think after I think when they in August. If we had known that this was an option, then you have that in the back of your head. And I don't think it would have changed Jaime's choice to have the surgery when they first diagnosed him.
Hmm.
I don't think it would have made a difference when they removed the brain tumor, because at the time there was no metastasis. So it was, I mean, one of my oldest daughters said, you have to be the luckiest unlucky man,
Mm,
under the circumstances. And I mean, he was, I'm in whatever it's going to take to continue living. That's what I'm going to do. But once it was determined that it was going to be, once the metastasis was identified and the oncologist said to us, it's going to be, you know it could be weeks, it could be months. That's when it became very difficult, because that's when that became scary.
yeah,
And had we known, then we would have prepared for that. We would have said, okay, this is where we are, and let's put that process in place. So, I mean,
yeah.
when we had
And do you
children, yeah, I mean, just
and do you
like, I'm sorry, it's just like the life, what I was saying before. You have
mhm,
these life events, and then right? You get married, you do this. You buy a house, you do this. You have children, you do this. You are now diagnosed with terminal disease with a limited, very limited um, life expectancy. So then you plan for that. You would plan whatever it is you need to do.
right. And you can't plan unless you know the options,
Exactly.
right? All you
Exactly.
can do is sort of accept what
Yes.
happens to you.
Yes. Yes.
And many people, and some people are okay with that. Some people,
Yes.
that's the plan for them, is just accept what happens,
Yes.
and hope for the best. And others they want to know all the options, they want all the
Yes.
information so they can
Yes.
create a plan that works best for them. And my sense is that I don't think Jaime would have chosen to end his life any sooner than he did,
No.
but I think he would have experienced, and everyone in the family would have experienced, a much greater sense of peace.
Yes.
around
Because
the
it
journey that was
was,
happening.
yes. I mean, from the moment I found out on Sunday to Wednesday, it was like I was running from a giant snowball, and I had to outrun that snowball.
Mm,
That's what I felt like. I was running. Um, I was calling people, I was trying to get appointments. I remember when I spoke to your office manager, and I was just I said it has to be as soon as possible. I just whatever we will make ourselves available. I just it doesn't matter. And I spoke to you before I spoke to your office manager because his oncologist had given me, so she said to me, don't, I've never done this. Um, I wouldn't want to do this. Like, I wouldn't want to be the first to be the first one,
the
to do it
attending
with your
physician, yeah.
husband. But and she also was very helpful. She said, I have a colleague, and before this colleague leaves, I'll get the information. And she called me right back, and I called you, and it was after hours, and you called me right back. And
Mm,
that all could have been avoided. That all could have been avoided, because that was a lot of stress on everybody involved.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have
And
been happen it could have happened in a more sort of gentle,
yes,
gradual time
yes,
frame
yes,
without
yeah,
it feeling like you have to rush and do everything
yes,
before he no longer can
yes,
participate, because you
yeah,
have to be
yes.
competent. You have to have your faculties in order to make this
Hmm.
decision. And he was getting to the point where he needed so much medication to
Yes,
just remain, so that he wasn't in agony,
right,
that he was getting close to that tipping point where he
right. That
wouldn't be able
balance
to.
between
Yeah,
you have somebody
yeah.
who is so under the drug effects that you know, can't you can't make that decision, or you're not, whoever is having to do this begins to doubt
Yeah,
whether this person is capable to do
right.
that. And I don't know, we could have had, a nice get together with the family. um it was I it was difficult afterwards because um we chose not to do your traditional burial. We had um a wake, we had, and we had pictures, and it was very um not sad. It was very, we talked about Jaime, and some people kind of, teared up, but it wasn't sad. It was very jovial, as much as you can. And it also gave people in our family permission to talk about him. And I mean, everybody was worried about me and the girls, um, because we were such a strong family unit. And this allowed them to be able to talk about him because we were so at peace
Mm,
with his passing.
yeah.
And it didn't make people weren't afraid to address us or come and, say they would come and hug us, and we would say, his energies moved on, and it was so great. And I mean, I would recommend this to anybody who
Who's
who
open to
wants
it,
to do it.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I know that that after we were both interviewed by a reporter for CBS, and there
Yes.
was a segment where I was interviewed and shared a bit about my experience with medical
Mhm.
aid and dying, and
Mhm.
you were interviewed and shared
Mhm.
your experience, personal
Mhm.
experience with your husband and your family. And there was also an interview of a physician who opposed medical aid in dying,
Yes.
who
Yes.
felt that it was um, I can't remember the words that he used, but it was essentially, we shouldn't be killing our patients, is
Right.
sort of his attitude about it. And
Yes.
one of the things he shared was that uh, we, we are able to palliate, to care, to manage
Mm-hmm.
the symptoms of any patient in a way that should be adequate for them,
Mm-hmm.
so that they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be
In pain.
in a position where they feel the only option is to end their life.
Yes.
So his perspective was, we can take care of everything, the pain, other symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
adequately, so
Mm-hmm.
nobody should ever
Mm-hmm.
need to make this choice. What are your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts about that? I know
Well,
you have some strong feelings about it.
yes. And I think that all comes from the fact that we watched my best friend wither to nothing. They managed her pain. They managed the different changes that her body was going through. Um, it was horrific to watch when somebody is so skeletal and is not aware of what's going on around them. Her eyes would be open. She looked frightened. Her breathing was horrible. And I know that they say that, or I've heard that this is a death rattle and this is a normal thing, but it for the family and for the person that is going through this, maybe the pain is managed, but the dignity with which you die is not there.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
I believe that if you don't want to exercise your end of life right, that's fine. That is definitely okay. But I also feel that if you know that that is an option, maybe as you are going through the palliative care and hospice care, you start to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be in this position where I'm not cognizant of what's going on around me and just want to go. I don't know if it's on your terms or more peaceful or in a more loving way. I
I
mean,
think
it
all
just,
three.
yeah.
Check, check, check.
Yes,
On
I,
your
I
own
think
terms,
that's for me, that would be,
peacefully.
you know,
Yeah.
and it takes courage and for us it was great because we all agreed with whatever Jaime wanted to do. Nobody was, saying, no, well, I don't agree, or that. No, we were all in line. And I think that's part of because of his personality. Like we knew who Jaime was, and we knew, I mean, he was a person who was, I don't want to say vain, but he cared about what he looked like and he exercised and he, wanted to look good and was a man who took care of himself. And I think one of the saddest memories for me is when he had a diaper and
Hmm.
I had to change him. And the look he gave me was devastating because he was so mortified to be in that position. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that,
I I get that.
yeah, that for me, and I would say to him, but you would do this for me. And he just looked at me and just shook his head like this isn't who I am and this isn't where I want to be.
Mm.
And that was, I mean, you're married to somebody for 40 years. You don't say words, you look at each other and you understand. Messages go between you just, and I
Hmm.
knew that. I knew that he was not in a good place.
Yeah.
And it was sad. It was very sad.
Well, I shared this with you all, and I'll just reiterate it now. Allowing him getting this information, allowing him to go through this process, and I mean, you didn't encourage it, you weren't making the decisions, but you allowed it, and
Yes,
you put in place what needed to happen
yes,
at his request.
yes,
What an amazing gift that you gave him to be able to do this, knowing that it was all about him, and you knew that that you could have him for another few days, few weeks, certain amount of time, and you were allowing him to do this
Yes.
because it was what was right for him.
Yes. And he
And he
gave
was
us, yeah, in
it,
return, a
for
beautiful,
sure,
beautiful memory.
for sure. He gave you a gift. He taught you and your daughters and your friends a new way. He was a pioneer.
Yes.
He was brave.
Yes.
It is courageous to make this choice.
Yes, it is.
And as I share with every patient that we care for who makes this decision, you are the pioneers. You are teaching
Yes.
your family and your friends about a new way to approach the
Yes.
end of life, and to be able to do it on your own terms.
Yes.
And as you say, it's not for everybody.
No.
Some people are not comfortable with it for various reasons, and that's just fine.
Yes.
They get to have their own, they get to choose their path.
Yeah.
But for somebody who would want this path, who would make this choice, who doesn't get to do it because no one told them about it,
Right.
or the obstacles were put up so that they couldn't access it, that's just, to me, that is a crime against humanity, to be
Yes.
honest with you.
Yes. Because
And
that is an option.
it is an
And
option. It's a
yeah,
legal right.
it is.
So I am so grateful for you to be willing to come on and share your story, and I know that you remain an advocate, and you will be tapped for more opportunities to come
I have
and
no
share
problem
the
sharing
story.
my
I
experience. If this reaches anybody and they choose to do it, or just the knowledge, just to have, then that's worth it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
again, it's like going to a restaurant, right? Here is the menu, and knowing what you can have makes that experience so much better. And I
yeah,
don't want to trivialize it, but knowing what you can, what your options are,
yeah.
I think is important. So
Well, we need to normalize this. We need to normalize the
yes.
conversation about the options, and that's part of what we're trying to do with Empowered Endings is help people to raise awareness. 75% of the people in California still don't know this option
Hmm.
exists.
Hmm.
And a lot of people in the healthcare field are either unaware or misinformed and giving
Hmm.
out information that is not accurate. So one of our one of our passions and missions is to make sure that people understand the
Hmm.
options that are available to
Yeah.
them. We're not promoting it, we're not encouraging it, but information is so valuable. And just having, like you say, having, if everybody wants a soft landing, no one
Yes.
wants to end their life in a traumatic, very
I
horrific
agree with you.
way.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to die peacefully.
Yeah.
Some
Everybody
and
I want to go to sleep and not wake up. That's what they all say.
Yeah, yeah. And people say, why do we treat our animals better than we treat our people? I hear that all the time. So what we need to do, and what we're helping to do, is create a roadmap to get there.
Hmm.
We know what the end point is. We're all going to die. We all want to die peacefully.
Hmm.
And what we get to do is speak with people, hopefully way upstream,
Hmm.
and have conversations about, well, when it gets to this point, here's the options, here are the
Right.
things that you can consider, and this is
Yeah.
what
Here,
could be
here is
available
your
to
life
you.
event,
Yeah.
and what are
So
the things to prepare for that event?
yeah, and we really appreciate your partnership in that,
Yeah.
because you're so eloquent and you're so passionate, and the I think there's so much value in hearing the real
Mm,
story of a person who who suffered
just
because they didn't have the information,
yes,
but the story ended well.
yes, it did.
There's a I
Do we
mean
miss them
it
every single
uh,
day?
no
Do
doubt
we
about it.
wish that it hadn't been this way and we had him another 5 years? Yes, yes, we would. We would love. We trade anything,
Of course.
but we knew what was coming, and
Yeah.
he knew, and that was the most important thing in this whole thing, that he knew what was coming, and he said that to you. I
Yeah.
know I'm dead. It's just a matter of when. And I don't
Mm,
want to have that linger. I don't want to do it how he saw it happen to our friend.
yeah.
So yeah, thank you for being
And
there for to help
yeah,
us with this.
it
And
was
you've
an
been
honor.
great.
It was an honor.
It was truly a good experience. I, and like I said, I think it was beautiful. I think some of my
Yeah.
friends have kind of their eyes pop out when I say it was a beautiful experience, but it was a beautiful experience. So,
I
mhm. Well, thank you so
thank you.
much.
Yeah, thank you again. And as we will certainly be having more of these discussions over
Yes.
time. If listeners, if you are interested in learning more about the story, there we a legacy story was created about Jaime and the family, and it is on our foundation website, the Empowered Endings Foundation. Has a relatively new and beautiful website with lots of resources and information. And
Yeah.
there's a story with photos on the website. It's empoweredendings.org. Um, and if you're interested in learning more about the whole medical aid and dying process, end of life options, how to plan best for
Hmm.
your journey and your future, there's also a lot of information available on empoweredendings.com, which is the website that really speaks to the medical practice and
Hmm.
the services that are provided through that practice, including support for medical aid and dying.
Yes.
So, Patricia, thank you again.
Thank you for having
It's
me.
always a
And
pleasure.
yes, and
And
allowing me
listener,
to hopefully reach out to people.
yeah,
And
you know what?
yeah,
If we helped one person, one
yes,
family
yes,
reduce their suffering, everything we've done
yes,
is
it's worth
worthwhile.
it. Agree,
Yeah.
agree. So thank you.
All
Have a
right.
nice afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you. You too. And thank you for listening. And we will see you on our next episode. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found this episode to be valuable. Having tough conversations about how you want to experience the end of life is so important. And please share this podcast with someone you know who needs to hear it. We're all in this together. For more resources and support, please visit empoweredendings.com. Until next time, remember that every ending can and should be an empowered one.